All right, everybody, let me just say to you all, thank you for joining us. Good morning, Dumelang, Sanbonani, Molweni, and all other amazing greetings that are out there. And if you are from the Kasi and the township of South Africa and Africa, we say to you, hola. And let me teach those international guests, hola, H-O-L-A means hello. So hola to you and welcome to the first of many amazing entrepreneurship organization Johannesburg sessions. And we are doing this because you are a hustler, a mover, a shaker. You are the hero of the South African economy. Yes, you are. And whether you choose to acknowledge it or not, you are adding value, not just to the economy, but you are adding value to the nation, to your country, to your continent, and to the world. The entrepreneurs have a very specific flavor to themselves. We are driven thinking, we live on the edge, we're not afraid to take brave new steps, and we shine through some of the most challenging environments that our economy, our political landscape, and this service delivery ups and downs throw at us. We stand tall. We face that storm head on. And that is why we're doing this. For you, by entrepreneurs. My name is Ronald Avergy. I am the incoming EO Entrepreneurship Organization Johannesburg Accelerator Chairperson, and I'm the CEO of Healthy Living Consulting. And I have dedicated my life and career to improving well-being. And today I'm going to talk to you about the cost and the reward of your health. But for now, I would like to introduce my amazing co-host, Helen Nicholson. She's a CEO and founder, entrepreneur extraordinaire of the networking company. She has written 2 books and she's a best-selling author and globally known as a leader in mindfulness and resilience and focus as one of the world's leading experts. Helen, welcome. Great to have you with me today.
Wonderful to be here, Ronald. And I'm an EO member.
As well, and not just a member, Helen's the learning chair of EO as well. And you hear us talking about this thing of EO as an acronym, an entrepreneurship organization. And folks, that I'll chat to you about at the end, just to give you some insight into the benefit that we've experienced as entrepreneurs of being part of this community. But let's get straight into the topic, and let me ask everyone here very quickly. If you could, right now, wherever you are, wherever you're sitting, standing, camera working or not, if you could describe how you're feeling right now as a cartoon character, if you could describe how you're feeling, where you're sitting, in every facet of feeling as a cartoon character, what would that cartoon character be? All right? My cartoon character right now, and you can post it in the chat, Johnny. I love this. Helen, are you checking this out? I've got Joseph is the Roadrunner. I've got Johnny Bravo. Yes, I did watch Johnny Bravo. And all I remember from this cartoon character, Johnny Bravo, is when Johnny Bravo would say, whoa, mama, because he had the legs of a toothpick and the body of a potato. That's how much muscles he had. Rachel's a unicorn with wings. I see Pinky and the Brain, Tom and Jerry, Buzz Lightyear, Speedy Gonzalez. Dr. Dulcie, you are revealing my age here because I know exactly who Speedy Gonzalez is. Dennis the Menace, Mickey Mouse, all right? Wow, there's a couple out there. You never got a shout out of Cannon. Okay, Wonder Woman, yes, Terry. Shanae's Popeye, fantastic. Helen, what would yours be?
I think it's probably some, my generation, I mean, I'm 53, so I think I'm a bit limited by my characters, but it's probably Wonder Woman meets Popeye's wife or something. Maybe that would be a combination. What was her name? Olive Oil, the one with the, yeah.
All right, I love that. All right, awesome. Mandy Gold, I hope that is still water, not sparkling, and you are hydrating yourself, looking after your well-being and your wellness. Welcome, Mandy, another EO member. So folks, here's the thing, right? My character is quite simple, right? And I was reflecting on this the other day with my 14-year-old daughter, who's technically going on 19 because I've got the attitude of a 19-year-old with the chronological age of a 14-year-old. And my character would definitely be Daffy Duck. That's how I feel like today. I feel like Daffy Duck. For some odd reason, that's just what resonates. But thank you for sharing. And that's just to bring us in and just to really have a laugh and to see how each of us are relating to how we're feeling. But the reality of this, Helen, as we hit into our discussion is, I mean, recently, folks, this is an interactive discussion. So please, if you've got any questions, if you've got any queries, post them in the chat. We will get to them. If there's something that you really want to ask or say, please just put your hand up. We've allocated about an hour, but we want to try and really get to the gist of this in about 45 minutes as we really share about, as entrepreneurs, we're hustling. And as we're hustling, at what cost are we hustling? What's the cost to ourselves? What's the cost to our health? What's the cost to our emotions? What's the cost to our relationships? What's the cost of this hustle? Are we just chasing bank balance and impacting industry at the cost of ourselves? And this is something that we really want to unpack today. And I'm so grateful Helen joined us. So Helen, I mean, recently I've chatted to a lot of CEOs, HR directors about what is impacting them in their business. And generally, people are mentioning that well-being is top of the list. Now, these are big businesses that support with support mechanisms in place. I mean, counseling, wellness programs, mobile clinics, etc. But for entrepreneurs like us, the pressure is constant. It's deadlines. It's lack of leave. We don't take leave. We often don't have people to fill in for us. We need downtime, or we really push through when we are ill and we need to rest and recover. We constantly have to deliver. And Helen, it's a lot. Now, we know that there's a massive reward, and that's a financial reward. That's a purpose, a goal reward, that why we really set up the businesses, right? But it comes at a potentially detrimental impact. Now, recently, the University of San Francisco found that entrepreneurs are more likely to experience mental health problems than people who don't own their own businesses. And that number, folks, is 72% of entrepreneurs participating in this study reported mental health problems. 72%. Helen, as the author of your book, Mindfulness, How to Stay Sane in an Insane World, I love that book. It's a hard copy, folks. It's in exclusive books. It's a great book. What are the 3 things that you believe everyone should be dedicating time to? And more specifically, what should us as entrepreneurs be doing?
So I'm going to share my thoughts. Ronald, can I share my screen now?
You go for it.
Yeah. So let's just go over here. Right. Can everyone see that? So hello, everyone.
Yes.
As Ronald says, my name is Helen Nicholson, and I have burnt out twice in my life, and the second time I nearly died. So when I share this presentation with you, this is not an academic presentation. It's deeply practical because this is my lived experience. I have been an entrepreneur for 20 years, and I agree with all the stats that Ronald has said. And I think what is interesting about being a South African entrepreneur, my husband said to me a couple of weeks ago that the thing about living in South Africa at the moment is it just keeps on coming. There's just a relentlessness about the challenges that we are facing at the moment. And I did a talk at Wits Business School the other night, and one of the guys put up his hand, and it was for me the question of the year, because he said, can you be mindful and scream at the same time? And that was his question, or how can you be mindful and scream? So I said, explain your question. So he said, and it was the day the interest rates had gone up. And he said, there's the Thabo Bester whole saga that's going on. I mean, he hadn't been arrested at that point. He said, we've got interest rates rising. There's a lot going on. We've got load shedding. You can, just driving in traffic sometimes feels like you going through the Hunger Games. And my response to him was, one of the coping strategies, I'm going to share some of mine, obviously, with you now, but just in the heat of the moment, one of my best coping strategies right now is to limit your news consumption, is to cut your news by at least 50 to 70%. I know exactly what's going on, but I look at headlines. I get Daily Maverick and Business Day every day. And because I need, as an entrepreneur, the only place where we can all go is our mindset. It's the only place that we have control over. And that's what this presentation is going to be about. It's about how do you control your mind when everything else is uncontrollable. So how do you stay sane in an insane world? So I'd like to start off by telling you a quick story. And the featured person in the story is the Tooth Fairy. Now, I don't know about you, but in your house and in your culture, but in my house and my culture, we have a history when children's teeth fell out or fall out, the Tooth Fairy comes to pay a visit and exchanges children's teeth for money. Now, I have identical twin daughters that have just turned 26. So they were 8 when this particular incident happened. And their 8-year-old selves, because they are identical, everything literally happens together. So their molar teeth fell out. And they were very excited about this because they thought molar teeth were worth more than little milk teeth in the front. So with great excitement, they went to go and deposit their teeth in their slippers, and they expected a visit from the Tooth Fairy. I'm embarrassed to admit, because clearly I was the Tooth Fairy, is I forgot. And the worst part of the story, and this is a true story, is I did not just forget the first night, I forgot the second, third, and fourth night. So I'll never forget, on the 5th morning, after forgetting about the Tooth Fairy, I was brushing my teeth. And one of my daughters, Sabrina, came up to me and she put her hand on my arm while I was brushing my teeth. And she looked up at me with the saddest little face you'd ever seen. And she said to me, "Mommy, I don't believe in the Tooth Fairy anymore." And what it was a real kind of dagger in my heart, because what I realized is life was not in a good place. It was Monday, then it was Friday, Monday, then it was Friday. And suddenly we were in October of that year. And I looked at my daughters who were 8 and I thought, I'm not sure I properly participated in their childhood. And, I only have twins. I don't have any other children to practice my newfound wisdom on. A lot of people, when they have children, they mess up on the one and then they can correct the second one. I did not have that luxury. So at about that point where the Tooth Fairy incident happened, you'll see there are 2 pictures of me there. The one is with me with a blue cap. I'm busy walking in Central Park in New York. And these 2 incidences, as I say, happened within months of each other, because I decided after that Tooth Fairy incident that there has to be another way. Surely we can't all be on this treadmill Monday, Friday, not participating fully in our lives, juggling our businesses, trying to kind of be good mothers, good fathers, good parents. And I went on a quest. So I went on to a program in the States called the Corporate Athlete in Orlando in Florida. And that was me just before I was going on that program. I had put on a lot of weight. And yet what was interesting is I hardly ever ate, but I would eat at night. So I would eat the contents of the fridge and the refrigerator at night, but hardly anything during the day. And I existed on coffees and Red Bulls, and I wasn't exercising at all. And there were only 2 small things that I put into place after I went on that program. And those 2 things led to that second picture there. And that's me in a pink t-shirt, and you actually can't see it in that photo, but I'm wearing pink running shoes. And that was me running the New York Marathon in 2011. Now, I've never run a marathon before or since, because I thought if I was going to kill myself, at least let me do it in style in New York. Now, the 2 things I've put in place after going on that program was I started to exercise. And I can tell that was important 20 years ago. Right now, if you are not exercising, I'm surprised that you're coping with your life, because exercise to me is the corner piece of my jigsaw puzzle. And I'm not talking about CrossFit or whatever. I'm just talking about going walking 3 times 30 minutes during a week, because exercise is one of the best things that we can do for our resilience. And we're going to talk about that jigsaw puzzle in a minute. So I started to run. And the guy said to me, if you're not exercising and you want to start exercising, put your running shoes at the bottom of your bed. And so I came back to South Africa. I was this good delegate. I put my running shoes at the bottom of my bed. Initially, I ignored them. Then I tripped over them. Eventually, I got my feet into them. I started to walk, and I started to walk and run. And I would do that lamppost to lamppost thing. And I got out there, and just religiously, 4 or 5 times a week, I got out and I ran. And 18 years later, I still run. And as I say, I ran the New York Marathon. It was a bucket list thing. Honestly, one of the best days of my life. And that exercise, and I still put my running shoes at the bottom of my bed. And for me, that was that New York Marathon was such an important milestone in my life, because first of all, I realized I can do anything I put my mind to do. And I'm not a natural runner at all. But what was so important for me is 2 things. One is I could break down hard things into miles. And I've used that philosophy whenever I encounter anything hard, I break it down. So in New York, 42 kilometers, which is a marathon length, is 26.2 miles. And in New York, they have a watering hole every mile. So that's about 1.6 kilometers. So I would run, I'd stop, take a little photo, have a little drink, and then I carry on. So I ran the New York Marathon, I ran a mile 26 times. So whenever anything is hard, I just break it down in 2 miles. Well, how am I going to break this down and make it work for me? So that was the first important thing I've realized when I do hard things. And the second one was to support my habit with a ritual. And that's one of the most important things. And I know Ronald is going to share some expertise on this because he's a real expert in this field. But, you know, to get us often, this is why New Year's resolutions don't work. And it's nice doing this session in April, because generally this is when whatever your intentions were for 2023 have completely kind of gone by the wayside by April. The gym car park was full in January, it's empty by March. You know, you wanted to do an MBA, you wanted to run a marathon, lose 20 kilograms, whatever it was. And it's because we go directly to the habit. And good habits only last if you support them with a ritual. So my ritual to get running and to get exercising was putting my running shoes at the bottom of my bed. And I lay my whole outfit out and I go and meet a friend down the road. So those 3 things, it resulted in an entire new habit. It's not a big deal. If I said to you, put your running shoes at the bottom of your bed, you'd be like, well, that's hardly going to change my life. It changed my life. And think of what you want to change in your life as we sit here today. And think of what ritual, what do you need to control in your environment that's going to help you, because your environment is everything. I believe behavior change is 97% environment. I mean, I've done a small thing. I'm trying to eat more vegetables at the moment. And one of the things the nutritionist that I'm working with has said to me, swap your fruit and vegetables from the bottom of your fridge and put them at the top. And I mean, that's such a basic thing, because we keep all our fruit and vegetables at the bottom, so we never see them. So now every time I open the fridge, the fruit and vegetables are right in front of me. So I can tell exactly where we are as a family in terms of how much we're eating. So your environment is everything in terms of behavior change. So those were my 2 takeaways. One is break big things or hard things down into manageable steps. Eat that elephant chunk by chunk, like I did. And secondly is, if you want to change a habit, what's your ritual to support the habit? So those were my lessons from the corporate athlete program. But the second one was more profound, because it's really around your time. But before I do that, I want to just share my second burnout experience, because, you know, I clearly was a slow learner. I didn't just burn out once. This wasn't as dramatic. The second time, this is when I nearly died. So this is my family. It's my parents, my brother, my sister, and my twins and my husband. We went on an Easter weekend a couple of years ago to the Drakensberg, to Cathedral Peak Hotel, and I'd been sick and I couldn't get better. I'd been on my 3rd antibiotic, and I woke up that Saturday morning frustrated with my body because I wanted to go hiking with everyone else. So I thought, well, maybe if I take my antibiotic and I take something else, you know, to double medicate myself. Now, I'm not Dr. Nicholson, and I do not advise anyone to do this because it didn't end very well. So what ended up happening, I took an antibiotic and took some other medication to try and get better faster on an empty stomach, and I went into anaphylactic shock. in the middle of the Drakensberg. And I took a picture of that bathroom floor over there because I wanted to kind of drill this into my brain. Helen, why is it that you prioritize everything else other than your health and my well-being? Why do I put kind of my work at the top, my children, my family, my husband, or whatever? All of those people come before me and my well-being. And why do I have to get to this point? Because my family found me naked, lying on that bathroom floor, and I'd been taking my clothes off because I don't know if any of you have ever been in anaphylactic shock. You start to, your body starts to pulse. And you get very hot. So I was ripping my clothes off trying to get to the shower because I thought I'd feel better. And you've got an hour to get help when you get anaphylactic shock, otherwise you're going to die. So you need adrenaline, you need cortisol, and you need, or cortisone, and a very strong antihistamine. And luckily, I did this on the Saturday, the Easter Saturday, and they managed to get me to a doctor in Winterton to get all of those 3 shots within the hour. What was interesting is I was going to wait till the Sunday to do my little medication experiment. And if I'd waited till the Sunday, and this was where things got really real for me, is the nearest hospital, because that doctor was not going to be open on Easter Sunday, the nearest hospital was 4 hours away. And I would have died if I'd done this on the Sunday, very unnecessarily, all because of perfectly my own stupidity and the fact that I wasn't prioritizing my health. And I had to deal with everyone's trauma around this about why do we have to get to this point, Helen? And that was where I really did embark on a different way of living. So my exercise was still my corner piece, my gratitude, my meditation, which we'll talk about just now. But this for me was probably the biggest aha moment, was around the way in which I manage my time. So I want to share this with you. So mindfulness is an interesting concept because mindfulness, a lot of people think mindfulness equals meditation. I have a broader view. I'm an ex-accountant, so I'm a very practical girl. I believe mindfulness is everything you do in your life. It's what you put into your mouth. It's, are your cupboards organized? What does your car look like? It's about the way in which you organize your books. You can see I like color coding my books. So, you know, it's in other words, I want to live an intentional, curated life, because I really, and it's one of the things that really happens as you get older, is you realize, and I think COVID accelerated this, we realize we get one shot at this. And I want to live a deliberate, intentional life and not a life by accident. So the way in which I manage my time became really important, because at the end of the day, that is our only resource we have as entrepreneurs. We have our energy and we have our time. So the way in which we manage those two are crucial in terms of us making the biggest impact in the world. And I love words and I love reading and writing. So what we've realized, I run a leadership development training business, and we've trained probably 8,000 people in this work over the last couple of years. But one of the biggest epiphanies for me was to realize that stress is not the bad guy. So you may say to me, well, Helen, that sounds very interesting. If stress isn't the bad guy, then who is the bad guy? Because I'm feeling overwhelmed. I don't get to the end of my to-do list. I'm tired all the time. It's April. It kind of feels like it should be October. We've realized the actual bad guy is the absence of recovery. We're not recovering enough. So stress often forces us to a high performance zone. It's actually where we often do our best work. Think of when you were studying, or you've got an exam tomorrow, or you've got an important pitch or presentation. That day before, your adrenaline and cortisol that are flooding through your system are there to help you perform at your peak. So stress forces us to this high performance state, but as human beings, we're not designed to stay in that state all the time. We're not designed to just have meeting after meeting after meeting and get up like at 5 o'clock in the morning and then just go until 8 o'clock at night. We actually are oscillatory creatures. We like to go up and down, or our bodies actually like that. That's why we have night and day. We have, and we can learn a lot from the seasons. We've got winter and summer, and autumn and winter. So how do we oscillate our energy better and not flatline it in the stress space? And the key is to understand recovery and start incorporating recovery rituals into your schedule. So because I love words, I've used words as a metaphor. But before we go there, I just want to, if any of you are sports fans, I think we can learn very valuable lessons from the sports, or especially the professional sports environment, because sports people understand the value of recovery. So if any of you are over 40, you may recognize this tennis player, Ivan Lendl. So Lendl was a world tennis champion for 5 years in a row. Now that meant he won the US Open, the Australian Open, the French Open, a whole lot of kind of championships every single year for 5 years. Never Wimbledon, interestingly enough. And Harvard Business Review studied Lendl's performance because they wanted to see what was his secret sauce. How was he able to have the sustained high level of performance over 5 years when his opponent on the other side of the net kept on changing and no one was able to sustain that high level of performance? So have a look at Lendl in action.
As expected from the defending champion, Lendl slowly began to rebound, countering McEnroe's precise volleys with his own arsenal of rocketing serves and skyward lobs. Lendl took the second set 6-4.
Now you would have seen in that last bit of the clip where Lendl was playing with his racket strings. So apparently what he would do is they noticed in his game, he would serve and he would increase his adrenaline and cortisol for the serve. And then he took 5 to 10 seconds longer between each shot than his opponent on the other side of the net. And what was interesting is he didn't even know he was doing it. So it was completely unconscious. And it was only when Harvard Business Review pointed it out to him, they said to him, do you know that you take 5 to 10 seconds longer between each point? So he would play with his racket strings, he'd bang his racket against his foot, and he would slow the game down. So he had a dramatic stress, recovery, like this. That was his game. And finally, when he was beaten by a Chinese-American player called Michael Chang extended his recovery time in order to beat Lendl. So there's a great lesson there for us as corporate athletes. And so I thought we all needed some ab inspiration on a Friday. I hope you are impressed with my dedication to the cause. So this was the South African relay team 3 Olympics ago, and they won a gold medal for this relay. Now, when we first started running our leadership programs, we ran it at the High Performance Center in Pretoria. Now, I'm not sure if any of you have ever been there, but it's where our athletes get ready when they're going to go and compete internationally before the Olympics, the Commonwealth Games, etc. And the swimmers, we were watching them train. It was all in the name of research. I hope you appreciate this. And then we did a lot of dedicated, very profound research on the subject. It was very pleasant. And there are 2 swimming pools where the swimmers train. One is a heat pool, and the other one is a training pool. And when the swimmers swim their top time in the heat pool, they don't go and get out and go and get changed. They go down to the training pool and they'll swim 20 or 30 lengths slowly because they know they've got to decrease their heart rate. So that's their recovery time. And then they get out and go and get changed. Now, there's a key lesson for us here is that stress and recovery. How do we incorporate that practically into our busy days? So this is where my word analogy comes into play. So I want you to imagine your day as a sentence. What is your full stop at the end of each day? When are you done for the day? I want you to imagine your day as a sprint. And there's something that you do at the end of the day. And when you cross over that, then you are finished. In other words, your work day is finished and you shift gears. So I've got 2, and I've been experimenting with a 3rd full stop. So the one is I sit down with my husband and we have a whiskey at the end of the day. And that marks the end of my workday. But before that happens, I will generally have a bath. So I'm that girl in my pajamas at kind of 6 o'clock, because that bath and changing my clothes, it kind of makes me feel like we're shifting gears. Then we sit down and have a whiskey. And the 3rd one we've been experimenting with, in fact, one of my EO colleagues recommended, she's very happily married. And she said that one of the key things that she has realized as a key to successful marriages is to go for a walk every day at the end of your day. And so that's been one of the other full stops that me and my husband have been experimenting with. So the walk, the bath, and the sit down and have a whiskey. And when those things, three things happen, I switched off email notifications of my phone. And I'll go back onto social media maybe later, but I don't do any work after 6 p.m. And I also think it's important for us as leaders of businesses to not send out emails at 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. and 2 a.m. and then be cross with people when they don't reply. Because I can tell you that it's a very old-fashioned paradigm. It's like the one of a marathon runner, which I think was very 80s and 90s. I think we've got to get really clever around the way in which we manage our energy, and we've got to use our energy in spurts. And I can tell you, I'm so much more productive as a sprinter, and I cross my finish line. So my question to all of you here, and we're going to divide you up into some groups later on, and you're going to get to discuss this, but what is your full stop at the end of each day? When are you done for the day? The second one is, I want you to imagine your week as a paragraph. How do you recover on the weekend? And I generally find this is a place where people have got some recovery rituals put in place, but I'd encourage you after today to amplify your recovery. Because if we expect increased performance from ourselves and our businesses, which I bet you we do for 2023, then my question to you is, what is your amplified recovery strategy? Because it's an out of balance equation if you're expecting increased performance and you haven't made some adjustments to your recovery. The two have got to happen in parallel. And often we just relentlessly increasing this performance, but there's no increase in our recovery rituals. So I have two recovery rituals that happen on the weekend. So you'll see my one picture there is on Friday night, even before COVID, we would never go out. We'd have You Magazine, knickknacks, and a whiskey. And we have a braai every Friday. And I can't tell you how happy that makes me, because when those things happen, then I know I'm like, we've worked hard from Monday to Friday. Now we're shifting gears. And the second one is I have a self-declared Sabbath, certainly for Saturday morning. And it has no religious connotations. I mean, a lot of people do take Sabbaths, and I would strongly suggest that you implement some kind of Sabbath in your weekend, and preferably where you take your phone and you go and put it somewhere else. I think digitally detoxing is the most powerful thing that any of us can do as entrepreneurs, because we've got to stop the noise in our heads. And when your phone is dinging the whole time and you're getting all these dopamine hits, you don't think strategically or cleverly in terms of the way, and we've got to be more strategic with our businesses. So I sit down on a Saturday morning, I go for a run with my friends, we have coffee, and then I come and I sit and I read the paper, I watch a Netflix series, or I read a book. And I do that for about 3 or 4 hours, and I don't speak to anybody. So that is my time. And I'm very aware my children are big and they've left home now. And if you've got smaller children, it's a lot more challenging. But I would encourage all of you to get at least 90 minutes built into your schedule in the weekend, where you do something that gives you joy, whether it's going for a hike on your own, going for a walk, whatever it is. And remember, recovery looks different to us, as long as it makes you feel rested and it gives you joy. Those are the two things, and you know it's working. So what are your recovery rituals at the end of your paragraph, at the end of your week? And then if we carry on with this word analogy from sentence to paragraph, now to your month, you imagine your month as a chapter. So we're shortly going to be moving from April to May. And often the only way we know we're moving months is debit orders go off your account. That's the way you know, which is not a great way to celebrate, kind of recovery. So I would strongly encourage you to put something in your schedule that marks the fact that 1 month is moving, and it's some recovery ritual that makes you feel rested and gives you joy. So I have had a life philosophy that when the going gets tough, the tough go to spas. And so I have a massage or a facial once a month, and it's my spa afternoon. I go there and I have a little steam bath thing, and I don't go with anyone. It's completely my treat that I give to myself, because I've worked hard for the month. And I think it's much more exciting than debit orders. So what monthly recovery ritual do you have in place? And then lastly, I'd like to challenge the South African paradigm around our having an annual holiday. The research, and it was very clear when I did the research for my book, is that we need a 3-day holiday or break is what you need regularly throughout the year. And I've learned a lot from a colleague of mine. He gets one of those big year planners. I'm sure you've seen them in the supermarket. They come out in September. And he puts it on the dining room table. He marks all the public holidays for the following year. And he books and he pays for as many 3-day breaks before the end of October, before they actually even start the new year. And they go camping a lot, so they're not expensive, but he's gotten ahead of this. And I think that is the key. And that's why this way in which you plan your diary and your life is about you being intentional about knowing that we actually are going to feel overwhelmed. So whenever you're feeling that, then you've got a little break that's going to kind of be your recovery break that's going to take you to the next level. And then I want to share 2 more slides with you, and then we're going to go into some discussion. But I heard this at a conference just before COVID. You can't be brave if you're not well. Ronald spoke about it in the intro. I believe there's a new pyramid of high performance. So well-being is the foundation, then bravery, and then relevance. Because you can't be brave if you're not well. Your body actually won't go there. It's the same thing as if any of you have ever tried to lose weight when you're stressed. You can't do it because your body is in fight or flight mode. So bravery is an advanced it takes your brain to some interesting advanced places. And you can't even go there if you're in survival mode. So are you sleeping? Sleeping has just become like the biggest problem that I'm observing amongst our delegates. No one is sleeping. And we can touch on that in the Q&A if anyone wants some tips and tricks. So, but I'd like you to remember this. You can't be brave if you're not well. And the last one is this, I alluded to it earlier, this jigsaw puzzle. So we brought out the Harvard happiness professor to South Africa 10 years ago. And he shared this, and he had 3 corner pieces, and I've got an extra one, which I want to add. So he said life is like a complicated jigsaw puzzle. So if any of you kind of have done a jigsaw puzzle, generally you'll start off with the corner pieces. And he said that in the middle of this jigsaw puzzle are the uncontrollables, the stuff I spoke about at the beginning, load shedding, kind of corruption, political instability, economic problems, the stuff that we're dealing with on a regular basis, but we have no control over those other than our taxes and our vote. But where he said things get interesting is those corner pieces, because those are the things that we have control over. And the first one is meditation. Second one we've already spoken about is exercise, sleep, and gratitude. So here's 3 where exercise, meditation, and gratitude, and I added sleep. Because if you can get those 4 things into your life, those hold you. That gives you the bandwidth to deal with all this other stuff. So I regularly exercise, kind of 6 days a week, different ones, Pilates, yoga, running, etc. I meditate every morning for 15 minutes. And I'm even now, and this just shows the tough times that we are currently facing, because I'm finding that what even worked last year is not necessarily hitting the spot this year. So I've actually started doing yoga and meditation in the evenings, some evenings too, because I find that I've got to double some of these strategies because of the stuff that we're dealing with. I practice gratitude. I fill out a page of gratitude every day, and I sleep for 7 hours, and I sleep really well. And we'll share some techniques on that. But I want to end the formal part of this presentation by just saying, we have a philosophy in our business that no one is coming. So we teach delegates, stop waiting for other people, because I've observed people wait for ladies in waiting, people in waiting, anyone. And we spend a lot of time waiting for other people to recognize our worth, or, you're waiting for clients to approach you or whatever. When you operate from the fact that no one is coming to save us, we are the ones we have been waiting for. It's incredibly liberating. My mother, who's turning 80 in 2 months, says to me, Helen, I can't believe you built a business about no one is coming. She says, I wouldn't pay you 5 cents to hear that message. She says, it's so depressing. I said, Mom, it's not depressing. It's very liberating, because when you realize no one is coming to save us, and I think in South Africa, that's especially relevant. I've now employed a company that's like filling in potholes in our neighborhood, because I realized no one's coming to save us, guys. We have got to save ourselves. So that
Oh,
is
wow.
my message.
Wow, Helen, absolutely fantastic. Thank you. That was awesome. You are awesome for getting vulnerable, for sharing, and opening that up. It's absolutely fantastic. And that's a sentiment that's echoed. And as I heard what you said, you spoke about the environment that you surround yourself with. You spoke about the core pillar of yours being exercise. Hey, I can relate to that in being in a well-being business. But you also spoke about what many people think is the bad guy. So folks, remember that. It's a very important tool because often when we're pointing at someone else, at something else or an extraneous variable, we often tend to not look into the mirror and say, what am I dealing with? Where is that within myself that I need to then begin to address? But Helen, I'd love to segue from what you've said, because as you mentioned your journey, I could absolutely resonate, because as an entrepreneur, many entrepreneurs in this call today, I have had quite a journey with my own mental health, and my hustle was killing me. Literally, it nearly killed me 3 times because I refused to get help. Even when I knew something wasn't okay, and I was constantly telling people in my business, how do you look after yourself? How do you practice well-being? How do you use wellness habits to get to the point of thriving? But I never took my own advice because I struggled alone. And as entrepreneurs, I find that we live in a bit of a bubble where we think that things that affect others don't really affect us. Coupled with that, I also live with ADHD. I have the brains of a Ferrari, but the brakes of a bicycle. So it takes a lot of cognitive energy to begin to focus. And the ADHD coupled with depression is a recipe for what I experienced as disaster. But it also links into neurodivergence, which means we're made to be entrepreneurs. We're fast thinking, we're innovative, we're problem solvers, we see things others don't. We can go into absolute hyper-focus mode. Yes, even I do with ADHD, on things that interest and excite us. But I found that it has its downside too. And Helen linked into the impact of the downside. I struggle to say no. I'm impatient sometimes. I struggle to keep calm when there's a storm around me at times. But that's my journey as Ronald, the entrepreneur. And we each have our own. And there are many ways in which divergent minds find their way to the world of entrepreneurship, but it also means that we must take particular care of ourselves in different ways. And I see in the chat here, Mark is talking about sleep. We have Cherie talking about sleep and exercise and what they do to look after themselves, dealing with mental health vulnerabilities as well. But folks, here's the thing. The reason why Helen and I find it easy to share is because we've learned the benefit of being in a community of entrepreneurs, by entrepreneurs, and that is an absolute priceless community. That is exactly what entrepreneurship organization means to me. It has been a journey, and there's a couple of EO members out here that I see in the call today. But the journey has been for me one where I felt alone. I felt that not even my wife, not even my friends, my family understands the nuances of, Helen, as you said, those debit order beeps at the end of the month. But we have the added stress and pressure of salaries. We have the added stress and pressure of hustling and hunting for business. We have the added stress and pressure of, like Marky said, dealing in toxic environments, and we have to go out there and smile. We have that added pressure of still finding a balance between handling and growing this business, which is our baby, and looking after the physical baby that we made in the house, right? Okay, pets too. I'm not saying you made a pet, but you got a pet, maybe that's your baby. Hey, up to you. But here's the thing. We often feel alone and we go inward. And when we go inward, we begin to believe the story that rattles around in our heads. I did. And when you go through the tough times in your business, you feel absolutely isolated. You feel alone and you feel lonely. You feel that people might not understand the circumstances. They might not, where do you find information on this? Do you go onto TikTok? Do you go onto Google and search, what do entrepreneurs do when they lose a deal? Yes, there's the clinical part, but there's the people part, there's a personal part. And that is what Entrepreneurship Organization has brought to me. A community of entrepreneurs who are sharing, not through advice, but are sharing through experience. I am no longer alone as an entrepreneur. I have, I have a community that has my interest at heart and understands the nuances that I understand as an entrepreneur and that I'm dealing with. And when I ask for an experience share, we get an experience share. I'm sure some of you have seen that in the chat, where I'm not saying to the person, hey, I'm a well-being expert, you must do sleep, you must do this, you must do that. We're giving you the options. Helen shared through her experience. So we would like to give you the opportunity to practice this and experience what we experience every month in being part of this community. And that is experience share time in a group or forum. So we're going to be breaking it out just for the next 2 or 3 minutes into little breakout groups. And in that breakout group, Helen, you had a question that you'd like everyone to do an experience share on. And others share through that experience, not to give advice, but to share through the experience. What is the question we should reflect on and experience share on?
So I think we spoke a lot around recovery. So what is your most useful recovery strategy, either daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly? And trying to avoid holidays because that's not very creative, but like, especially because I find that daily and monthly are the places that people battle the most with. Often weekend, we seem to be better, but you know, what is the recovery strategy that works for you?
What is your most useful recovery strategy? Excuse my language here, right? What is your most useful recovery strategy? And that's the question that we ask you today. So breakout rooms for the next few minutes, and we'd like to experience as entrepreneurs what we experience in being part of this entrepreneurship organization community. Breakout rooms, here we go. See you soon.
There's definitely sports, and there's definitely committing to sport, like his class, where you have to go, so you can't ignore it. I'm struggling at the moment with sport, but I'm also recovering from a flu, so I am super negative and down. I'm also kind of wondering if I'm not extra sick because I'm heading towards a breakdown, so or a burnout. So this couldn't have come at a better time. And then one was sort of the Sabbath and religion, sort of going towards that area, whatever your religion or spiritual denomination might be, but it is sort of just checking in with that at times.
Lovely.
Sorry, I'll put my video on, but I look terrible because I'm recovering from flu.
Oh, we don't judge. We don't judge, Deborah. We got you. Awesome. Helen, thank you for holding the space. The group just finished sharing. I think everyone is back. Folks, sure, just some feedback. I know, let's just open up for 1 or 2 comments on what was that experience like as we pull in and you share through experience. Helen, it's called the Gestalt principle, right? We share through experience rather than if someone says, this is my concern, but you should be doing this. No. We don't have hierarchies in entrepreneurship organization. It's a level playing field, and we're all entrepreneurs wanting to learn from each other and through others' experiences. So are there any comments on that experience you just went through from anyone? Let's open up for 1 or 2. Everyone all good with it? That's fantastic. That means we did our job, Helen. We rocked it.
No,
okay.
I think they just try. I think we need to
good
pull them out.
conversation with Helen, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's something that's so inspiring. In fact, when I came in and hear you releasing and kind of sharing your story, I had to go to my community. I have a group of entrepreneurs that I coach. So I asked them, and I knew a couple of them that are struggling with dealing with stress, mental health, and all of that. You know, as an entrepreneur, it's really not something you need to be boxing alone. So when I joined and I saw all of the stuff you were sharing, I had to get them, alert them. If you can, please quickly join. And I'm glad I had about 3 of them that just joined, and they're already sharing something positive about the session. Now, in our breakout session, we also again talked about our personal stories. And for me, what I love most is, as entrepreneurs, I'm a coach. I run a training and a coaching company, and I also have 2 more other businesses we run. At some point, you are mentally drained, you are weak. For me, even my wife, most of the time is one person who just feels drained by the day. She's new to entrepreneurship, so not really the hardcore. So for me, the ability to hear you share your story and how you recover is such a great, impactful and inspiring one. Before now, I used to just go around with my kids, play with them. For me, that's how I forget about the stress. That's how I deal with my stress. I love those, you know, them with the high energy. It's usually hard, but now you talked about running, walking. I probably will have to start on that this weekend. So that's just how I feel I could get value from there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Oscar, I think, sorry, Ronald, just to jump in there, but I think that, you know, one of the things that I realized as an entrepreneur, I joined EO 5 years ago, and sometimes when you're lonely, you actually don't know that you're lonely. And for me, it sounds a bit strange, you know, because you used to, all of us probably on this call, there's a certain, what I realized, I found my tribe. I found a whole lot of other people who are just like me. And we were all actually like lone rangers. I've often referred to myself as Joan of Arc. And my coach has said to me, Joan of Arc is not a good analogy, because Joan of Arc is on a horse on her own, like just like going forward and doing stuff. And there's no one around to help Joan of Arc. And for me, EO was that. It was my tribe, that I suddenly found that they were my, you know, we're all in the same boat. So there's such a, because often even your spouse, you can't speak to about stuff. You can't speak to people in your team because you freak them out because there's not enough money to pay salaries at the end of the month. There's, you know, those are the things that entrepreneurs, and we keep it all in ourselves. And we're not Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc ends up like I did on the, you know, naked on the bathroom floor. So for me, one of the critical parts and one of my corner pieces is EO. It's my tribe, because it helps me enormously. I always just feel like,
Thank you for sharing.
100%. Thank you, Coach Oscar. Thank you for bringing in, you know, your clients and bringing them in. It just shows your passion for value and giving value for growth and within them. And Helen, again, your share has been absolutely priceless and the epitome of what EO means, stands for, and actions within this process. Folks, there's links being put in there. If you want to find out more about Entrepreneurship Organization, we also have another tier within that, because it is, you know, there's a criteria you've got to meet to become an eligible member, but you also have to go through an interview process, meet certain revenue targets. And that's because we want to get the right people within the community, the right fit, the right connection with the right individuals within the community. And it's a very stringent process, but it's a process that has deemed benefit for those members. And this is why we find that we have tenured members all the time. But the program I'm talking about is where I started. My journey started with the Accelerator program. Now, before you say, Ron, come on, dude, Accelerator, Incubator, same thing. It's a dime a dozen. Well, maybe it is out there, but the Entrepreneurship Organization Accelerator program is not that. It's a program that is focused purely on helping you scale your business to $1 million revenue target, giving you the tools, the skills, and the ability to do that, the learnings and the frameworks to do that. And this has been given by Vern Harnish and the EO community and learning in structured ways. It gives it to us, but we still have to action it. Helen has given us her share. We still need to action it. But you also have an accountability group every month where you have the same experience like this, where you can share a business problem. You can share problems as deep as, guys, SARS is knocking on my door. I forgot to pay them. Or I don't know what to do. And the team will share. I'm dealing with sales issues. How do I get new sales? There was a comment mentioned earlier. How do you deal with a toxic work environment? It's a client's work environment. Guess what? You're going to get 6 to 7 people's experience shares in your accountability group. That's what we do. And that's why we felt this is important for us to share the value of EO to us and all the other EO members here. So have a look at the links. Folks, that's all we have time for today, unfortunately, but we will be doing more of these and having more guests, more EO members. And as I leave you, I'd like to just say to you that we're chasing and we're hustling almost 24/7, 365. And when we look at the type of positioning we want to create for ourselves, when will enough be enough and at what cost will enough be enough? Helen shared her 2 experiences, and many of us here might be experiencing similar symptoms, similar experiences. We are sharing with you the opportunity today to not wait till it's too late. And through the experience shares in your groups, you have that opportunity now to implement what you maybe heard that is relevant to you. But if you really want to delve deeper into the experiences and knowledge and wisdom of other entrepreneurs in a very structured environment, in a confidential environment, in an environment that also gives you access to a global community, just check out what EO is all about. It's an absolutely phenomenal community that I say has been the best investment into me as a man, as a husband, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, and as a dad to a puppy as well. It has been that best investment for me. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep hustling, but hustle wise. And don't forget the full stop at the end of the day. See you soon, everyone. Bye.